We are back at the Supermarine Night Cross, aka the Night Cross World Championships. We've got Alex on the right there in the Serum Velo kit, Dave Roper, who I was racing against last year for the series. Alex is racing to try and win the series, and Callum's over on the far left, who's in second place in the series. This is the last one of the series. Unfortunately, I've missed the other ones due to other commitments, but it was mega fun. Racing cross at night is wicked. We're about to get underway and Dave gets off to an absolute shocker start here. And look, I had to hit the brakes there because I was about to absolutely rear end him. So then he clips in, gets a good start. I tried to sneak up the right, but I see that bush there and I'm like, not today. So I eased off and then quickly snuck past Alex here, and I'm not gonna lie, I completely dive bomb this next corner like a pure chopper in a minute, but I see Dave pulling a bit of a gap and I'm like, I need to get on his wheel and go for it. So I've gone for the absolute Max Verstappen dive bomb there up the inside. But if you're not rubbing, you're not racing. But I knew I needed to get straight on Dave's wheel. He's been doing these races and he's a seriously strong road rider. So when it is dry like this and when it gets to a flat section, if I'm not glued to his wheel, you know I do not have the power to go with him. I had a little nosy on his Strava to see what he was doing after, and I think he nearly averaged 300 watts in a cyclocross race. That's nuts to me because I can't do that. I do not have the power, but when he hits a straight section, he puts down some ponies. Look at this, he's absolutely drilling it now, and I'm thinking, give me a break. We are literally a minute into this, give me a break. But it was a fairly good start. I had to burn a few matches to get back on his wheel. But one thing you will notice is look how much I can close down the gap on the corners. The big problem is when we hit the straights, I've got to be glued to him. Look at him go now, putting out the power. I want to get his training peaks file to see what sort of numbers he was putting out down here. I might actually message him and see if he'll let me have it so I can do a bit of analysis. But I was clinging on for dear life right now. You know when you look down at your legs and you're just like, please give me something. I am not good at racing in the evening. I'm getting my excuses in. I'd had a tough training week. I had a terrible corner there. You can't make these mistakes, especially on the first lap. If you're letting the wheel go and having to sprint down closed gaps, it's just absolute carnage. But I did manage to get back on his wheel, but look, he is really pushing the pace right now. And to be honest, my heart rate's not overly high, but the problem I was struggling with was one, fatigue, and two, I normally go to bed at about 8 PM and it's about 7:35 now, so my body's thinking it's time for bed. I sound like a little 10-year-old there, but I love an early night. But right now I'm clinging on for dear life. I'm not going to lie, we're doing 22 mile an hour, but you'll see coming into the corners where we had our strengths and weaknesses. Dave's much stronger on the flats than me, and look how quickly I can close that gap round the corner. But when he starts putting down the power out the corners, I'm just looking down, and in the words of Ian Beale, I've got nothing. I've got nothing left. Look, God, mash, 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 absolute animal. I need to find out what his FTP is as well, because he's a strong, strong boy. And like I said, I could feel every time he was putting these surges in, I could feel the elastic stretching, and there's only so many times I can deal with that. Like, these conditions, dry, fast, are not ideal for me. I need it a little bit slippy, a little bit more technical. But we come into this wood section in a minute. I think he makes a little error here and slips. But we come just there. But we come into this wood section and I'm thinking, now's a chance for me to get a little bit of rest in my legs, a little bit of recovery, because I thought I'd be stronger in this section. But Dave decides to absolutely go nuclear through it. Look at him absolutely ripping it. I was like, holy cow. And last season I crashed in here into a tree and I have a pretty hefty scar on my leg, so I was a bit wary going through there, but he gapped me and I thought that was the bit I was going to get some recovery. So now I'm thinking, get straight back on his wheel, because when we get out to the other side, he's going to hit them straights and just bury me again. So we're coming round this corner into some steps. It's a dismount job. I thought about trying to get past him here a bit. He shuts the door just there with his bum. and I couldn't manage to get past. And as soon as he got back on the bike, look at that. That is what you need in cross. Every time you get out of a corner, back on the bike, you've got to get up to speed as quickly as possible. And that is what Dave's doing. Look at it. Every time he comes out of a corner, he's really putting down the power. And it was quite impressive. Like, I was sitting on his wheel and I was just thinking, when's he going to give me a break? And he didn't. Just every time, you've got to get the speed back up. Here, look. Again, bang, bang, bang. And I could just feel every effort he done, it was, the elastic was stretching, and there was gonna be a point. Look at the cornering though. That's a proper roadie, Dave. Proper roadie. I'm a cross racer. He's got the power. I needed it to be a little bit slippier, and maybe I'd have been a little bit closer to him or got the better of him. But when we come out of here, I was in Shell City, and it wasn't the fact that my heart rate was high. It's only at 172. A lot of my races recently I've been maxing out at 186, but my legs just didn't have it. And I was coming round here now, and I was like, it's game over. Your man cannot go with this. He's absolutely burying me. And as soon as I let the wheel go and got a bit of the headwind, it was Red Rover for me. I didn't have the power, but I thought here I might be able to close it down on this corner. You can see how much I did close it down, but as soon as we hit this next straight again, he was straight back on the power. And he deserved this gap right now. I didn't have the power on the straights, and he did. And that's the thing with cross, you've got to be so rounded. You can't just be good round the corners. When you come to a course when it's dry, fast and flat, you need to have the ponies on the straight. And in this race I didn't, so he did gap me here. But one thing I never do is give up, because all it takes is one little slip from Dave, one little mistake, and I will be able to close the gap and get back on. But he really pressed on these first 2 laps, and once he got the gap, it was a bit of a stalemate. And watching it back now, I'm like, I just needed that extra 1 or 2% to go with it on the first lap or so, and maybe we would have had a really good battle. But spoiler alert, he manages to get this gap and manages to make it stick. He was just really pushing on first 2 laps, and that's when you've got to go for it. You've got to be able to suck up the pain and get on with it. The first couple of laps of a cross race are just hell, and tonight wasn't my night. But you can see just there, he gets the gap and I don't manage to close it down. I'll jump on in a second now. I mean, I was giving it everything to shut it down. I thought maybe I'll be able to close it on these last few corners, but I didn't. And the gap stayed at a stalemate. I made a little mistake there, but you can see him on the left just there. And every lap, you know, when you can see you're coming past at the same point each time, and he was probably managing the gap and I just didn't have the power to shut it down, unfortunately. So after that, it was just survival to the end. And there was one more goal. I was getting chased down by Mr. Paul Lloyd, and he was toying with me. I was going around these corners here and I could see him coming the other side, and he was like, don't let me close the gap, don't let me catch you. He wasn't even out of breath. I was hanging out. There he is, just there on the right, and he was like, don't let me catch you, don't let me catch you. And we were coming through 1 lap to go, and I'm gonna pause it and just pop up his race times. He was steady, steady, steady. Last 2 laps, he went full send. He smelt blood. He wanted to ruin my evening, and you guessed it, he caught me. And when I say I tried everything to not let him catch me, I did. I even tried asking Lindy here to block Paul.
Block Paul. Block him.
Sometimes you've just got to play those dirty tactics. I was trying everything to block him, and just here, I looked over my shoulder and he had got on my wheel, and I thought, it's it. I'm absolutely signed, sealed, delivered. I'm about to get dispatched. And as he comes round me here, he's like, jump on my wheel. I'm like, no, I'm done. Ian Bill again, I've got nothing. I've got nothing left. But look at the power. This is where I've always struggled. The power sections, and I'm going to work on it. But Paul was in the vets race, so I did finish 2nd senior. Paul won the vets. We had Dave first in the seniors, me second. Really good race. I was only about 18 seconds behind him in the end, I think, something like that. But it was wicked to get back out racing night cross. Unfortunately, it was the last one of the series, but absolutely mega and a good way to get back into some cross racing.